Here is a physics problem you cannot solve with better code. Your server is in London. A user in Sydney loads your homepage. The signal travels 17,000 kilometers there and back. Even at the speed of light through fiber, that round trip takes 170 milliseconds. Add TCP handshake, TLS negotiation, and server processing. And your user in Sydney is waiting 600 to 800 milliseconds before seeing anything. You can optimize your code all day long. You cannot change the speed of light. Google research found every 100 millisecond delay reduces conversions by 7%. If your site takes 800 milliseconds to load in Sydney, you are losing revenue to your competitor, whose site loads in 200 milliseconds. A CDN solves this by putting your content physically closer to your users. Edge nodes, servers and data centers around the world store copies of your content. Your user in Sydney is served from a CDN node 20 kilometers away. Round trip, 5 milliseconds. Not 800. 5. Here is exactly what happens when a user requests your page through a CDN. First request from Sydney, cache miss. The Sydney Edge node does not have your content yet. It reaches back to your London origin server, fetches the content, and caches it locally. This first request still has origin latency. Every subsequent request from Sydney cache hit. The Edge node serves the cached content directly. Your origin server is never contacted. This is the state for 95% of your traffic. Now multiply this across 200 global POPs. First visitor in each city pays the cache miss cost once. Every visitor after that gets sub 10 ms response times. Origin Shield adds another optimization layer. Without it, 200 POPs all miss at the same time during a cache clear. 200 simultaneous requests hit your origin. With Origin Shield, one intermediate cache absorbs all POP misses. Your origin sees one request, not 200. Essential for high-traffic sites. You control exactly what the CDN caches through HTTP headers. The cache control header is the master switch. Public, max age equals 86,400, CDN caches this for 24 hours. No store, CDN never caches this. Used for authenticated pages and API responses. Smaxage is the CDN-specific TTL. It overrides maxage for CDN caches while leaving browser cache behavior unchanged. Your CDN caches for 1 hour. The browser caches for 5 minutes. Set them independently. Here is the pattern that gets you maximum cache efficiency for static assets. Use a content hash in the file name. appabc123def.js that hash changes when the file changes. Set max age to 1 year, cache forever. When you deploy, the file name hash changes. CDN fetches the new file automatically. Old file disappears from cache naturally as it expires. This gives you permanent caching for static assets. With instant updates on every deploy. No manual cache purging needed. Azure has multiple CDN options and the choice matters. Azure CDN standard is the entry point. Simple content caching. 200 plus POPs. Pay per GB transferred. Use it for static websites, image libraries, video delivery. No frills. Does the job. Lowest cost. Azure Front Door is a completely different product that includes CDN as one feature. It is a global load balancer, CDN, web application firewall, and failover manager in one. Here is what makes Front Door essential for large applications. You have backends in East US, West Europe, and Southeast Asia. A user in India sends a request. Front Door routes it to the nearest healthy backend, Southeast Asia. If Southeast Asia goes down, Front Door instantly reroutes to West Europe. The user experiences no outage. Front door also adds layer 7 routing. Route to different backends based on URL path. /images goes to a storage account. /API goes to your app service. All behind one global domain. The decision, static site or simple CDN, Azure CDN standard. Multi-region app needing global load balancing and health-based failover, Azure Front Door. The rules engine is where Azure CDN and Front Door earn their value beyond caching. Rules run at the edge, before the request ever reaches your origin server. HTTP to HTTPS redirect. Any HTTP request is redirected to HTTPS at the edge. Your origin never sees unencrypted traffic. Zero backend changes required. URL rewriting. Your old marketing site used /products/item name. The new site uses /shop/item name. Rule: rewrite incoming old URLs to new paths transparently. Users' bookmarks keep working. Search engine rankings are preserved. Security headers on every response. Add content security policy, X-frame options, X-content type options to every response. One rule in the CDN. All backends get all headers automatically. Geo-restriction. Legal requirement to block content in certain countries. Rule: if country equals X, return 403. Applied at the edge globally. Your backend never sees those requests. All of this without writing a single line of backend code. Here is the part most developers do not know about CDNs. CDNs are not just for static content. Even your API responses, which cannot be cached, benefit from a CDN through DSA. Dynamic site acceleration works differently from regular caching. Instead of caching the response, it optimizes the network path between the user and your origin. TCP pre-connection: the CDN edge maintains warm connections to your origin server. When a user request arrives, no TCP or TLS handshake needed to the origin. That alone saves 150 to 300 milliseconds on every dynamic request. Route optimization: CDNs have their own private network backbone. A request from Sydney to London through the CDN's private network is 30 to 50% faster than through the public internet. CDN providers pair directly with ISPs globally, they find faster paths. The result: even for your personalized, authenticated, non-cacheable API responses. Routing through the CDN is faster than going directly to origin. Enable DSA on your API endpoints in Azure Front Door. The performance improvement is measurable with no code changes whatsoever. Let me show you 3 patterns that come up in every Azure architecture. Static site hosting. Store your React or Angular build in Azure Blob Storage, static website enabled. Put Azure CDN in front. Global delivery. No app service. No server to manage. Costs pennies per month. Custom domain with HTTPS CDN provisions the certificate automatically. Single page application with API backend. Azure Front Door handles the routing. Requests to /API route to your app service backend. Everything else routes to Blob Storage CDN, your built JavaScript bundle. One domain. 2 completely different backends. Zero complexity for the user. Multi-region active-active. App service deployed in East US and West Europe. Front Door monitors both with health probes every 30 seconds. Users in the US hit East US. Users in Europe hit West Europe. East US fails health check, Front Door reroutes all traffic to West Europe. Automatic. No DNS changes. No manual intervention. This is part 28 of the Azure series. Subscribe and keep going. Next up, Azure AI Services. Let me bring it all together. A CDN solves a problem that no amount of application optimization can fix. Geography, physics, distance. Put your content on edge nodes near your users and latency drops from 800 milliseconds to 5 milliseconds. Cache control headers give you complete control. Immutable static assets, cache forever with hashed file names. API responses, no store. Dynamic pages, short TTL. Azure CDN standard for simple static content delivery. Azure front door when you need global load balancing, multi-region failover. And WAF protection all in one service. The rules engine lets you implement redirects, URL rewrites, and security headers at the edge without touching a single line of backend code. DSA extends CDN benefits to your dynamic, non-cacheable API traffic, with 30 to 50% latency improvements just from network path optimization. This is part 28 of the Azure series. Subscribe and keep going.